and welcome to the latest episode of yours truly, AC, Talking Bowls. And yes, I do talk a lot of bowls, don't I? Welcome back, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. I know it's a bit tricky, isn't it, all this lockdown business? There's not a lot happening. I don't know about you, but I just feel like I'm treading water at the minute and just waiting for life to restart a little bit. So it's nice for me, and I hope for you too, just to have a little bit of normality and talk about something that, well, if you're watching this, something that you love, Crying Green Bowls. Not a lot happening. It's closed season. It's lockdown. What did I think would be going on? Well, not a lot. There's very, very little happening. And not a lot to update you about, really. But you're here, and I'm sure I will think of something to talk about for the next 20 minutes or so. First of all, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And remember, if you enjoy this video, please hit that like button. And if you're not already a Bowls Buddy and a member of this wonderful community, please hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell for notifications of new content on this channel, which unfortunately at the minute is only once a week, but fingers crossed we'll get more soon, hopefully. So guys, also something that I mention now and again, but I really don't go into a lot of detail about, is please share these videos with your friends. If you're on Facebook, you can share these, share the videos on your page. If you're on Twitter, Instagram, you can share my videos. There's thousands of hours of Crying Green Bowls videos on this channel, and the fact that I only get to a very small percentage of the Crying Green Bowls in this country is keeping me awake at night, and I need you guys to help me reach more people. So please share, comment as well, because I'll probably end up saying something and reading one of your comments out. So if you just want a shout out or whatever, leave a comment and I'll see it, and I'll probably talk about you next week. That's the way it's working at the minute. So I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll crack on and have a look at some of the comments that were left on last week's video.
Comment Corner.
Okay, so if you remember, I was talking about a couple of greens that had gone, Works greens, and I was talking about the ICI complex at Huddersfield, which had changed its name, and I couldn't remember the name of the place. And of course Michael Martin's been in touch with me, and he said, how could you forget about my Canalside team? Must have been the youngest team to play a full 12-man team and the only one to take a limo to a Yorkshire Cup game. And that's absolutely right. How could I forget Canalside? Great set of lads, bit mouthy, bit gobby, but to be fair, some of them had a lot of ability. Michael Martin, James Martin, there are others, but I'm not gonna massage any egos there. They played the game hard, and they gave you a bit of stick if you deserved it, but it was all right. You know, there wasn't a lot of nastiness, not really. A couple of things stood out about the team is they had two members who were openly gay, which is unbelievably unusual in Crying Green Bowls, and nicer lads you couldn't wish to meet. Both reasonable players, both enjoyed a good shout, and I can't remember his name. His nickname was Rimmer. I don't know why. Don't know. It's a new one on me. But he used to shout and run after his balls, and very entertaining. And then Thongsbridge played Canalside in a semi-final of the Yorkshire Cup at a green in Harrogate. Notice the posh pronunciation. Beautiful, beautiful venue. And they rolled up in a stretch limo, all the team and their supporters. And yeah, not many clubs would have done that. So that's what the Yorkshire Cup was all about, of course. So thank you, Michael, for filling me in about Canalside. I totally forgot. I had a blank, unfortunately. Stephen Armitage, He's saying, fantastic again AC, so many works greens are no more sadly, at least Budenberg's had a new one built a while back but not a patch on the original one, and I've not had the pleasure of playing on the new Budenberg's green. I've been and had a look at it through the fence. Lovely location, clubhouse is beautiful, but the old Budenberg's green was very tricky. I loved playing on that as my home green when I played at Budenberg's down in Altrincham. Fantastic time for bowls, and possibly the last sort of big boom period was when the Manchester Premier League really kicked off, and all of a sudden there was this interest in club bowling again midweek round Manchester area, which eventually went into St Helens, down as far as Congleton, over to Lower Hopton. It really did revitalise league bowling for a time, and no finer bowlers were on show anywhere else in the country at the time. But yes, Budenberg's very special place in my heart. He continues, I believe the Pack Horse in Macclesfield has been saved. Another remarkable green. We have a very healthy bowl section at my club, 11 teams in the summer and a thriving winter league, but lack of income during this difficult period is very worrying. And absolutely, I know I've said in the past, when this situation is all over, we really need to support our clubs, even if it's going out of our way to spend a few extra quid over the bar, or maybe make a donation or whatever. They will need us, and we need them, so it makes sense that we help each other out, of course. Let's go through it. Eric Holmes said Middleham is near Beedale in North Yorkshire, which apparently is a big horse racing part of the world, which is probably why they were playing for a horse, I guess. Makes sense, and a saddle, and a tack, and what have you. Gary Wallace, my old pal Gary Wallace, one of the blasts from the past. And I might just mention him later on, but he's put a very nice message on. Your passion for the game is never ending. Loving you delving back into the early history of the game. Must be plenty of material there for you to write a book. And I'll be honest with you, I have thought about it. How many copies would I sell of the history of Crown Green Bowls in the early 20th century? I think I count that on one hand. But I have thought about going down to the British Library, looking back through the old newspapers and journals and things, and just trying to get a sense of what the game was about back then, and how big it was, how important it was in the general public's lives. And looking back through the scrapbooks, which I'm ongoing with, and I don't want to rush into that, because there's an awful lot of things when I started looking through them last night, and there's some awesome stuff, there's some really interesting stuff, and I don't want to rush into it and just make a throwaway video. I really want to do some proper research and get the programme planned, so I'm not going to rush into that, but I am ongoing with it. It's just amazing reading, for instance, one of the winners of the Talbot, I think it was in 1910, maybe 11, he got back to his village, town, whatever it wasn't a small place, could have been North Ashton, I'm not sure. He was paraded round the town on people's shoulders. There was a brass band playing. The mayor of the place was there. It was massive. It was huge, winning the Talbot. And people knew you. You were a celebrity. Professional bowlers were the big sportsmen of their era. But I will be covering all that in later episodes, and I think it will be quite fascinating. I need to get to the bottom of a little mystery that I've got, and I can't just get my head around something in a minute, but I might have to delve deeper into that. But anyway, that really nice comments from Gary. Dave Parkin, back onto the Canal Side thing. Canal Side was the old ICI green in Huddersfield, and both teams are now gone. Both greens are now gone. The men's team went to Almonby Lib a few seasons ago. The vets have gone to Mould Green, and it's now just Huddersfield Town Training Centre, not open to the public, which is a shame. It was a beautiful venue. The facilities were second to none. There was ample car parking. The main green was a good green in good condition. Didn't run particularly, but it was always in lovely nick when I played it. The back green they cut down. I think that was the harder of the two greens originally, and the way that it had been developed, very, very tough green, really tough. Only played it the once and I didn't enjoy it one little bit, but it's a shame because I know the ICI venue it had held All Englands, it had held Yorkshire Merits. Sad to see it go. Another two greens lost, and God knows what they'll be turned into. It is a bit worrying. He says you could have lunch there and mingle with the players and have a chat with Andy Booth, town legend. Well, if Huddersfield Town float your boat, that would have been the place to go. Now, personally, not my cup of tea, but I can certainly understand how good and how nice it would have been to be able to just talk to managers and players of your club whilst you're playing bowls. Fantastic. Be like me bumping into Sean Dyche at Gag Hills. Yeah, not going to happen. Okay, Paul Hargreaves, a regular contributor of mine from Burnley. He says, I look forward to your piece in the future on early 20th century crown green bowling. Maybe I should go on Mastermind with that as my special subject. I'd like to ask a question regarding that. The Talbot handicap had been established for about 30 years when the upstart Waterloo handicap began in 1907. At what point do you think the latter overtook the Talbot to become the more prestigious? Well, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. The Waterloo was always the little brother of the Talbot, always. And I remember as I was learning, I got one of my mentors in the games, a guy called Derek Nuttall, who was a good player. I think he played for Lancashire at one time and won a few comps and ran well in the Waterloo a few times. And he was telling me that the Waterloo and the Talbot weren't really for people that worked. It was really difficult for those that had a job and couldn't get time off to go and play in the Waterloo, especially the Waterloo. The Talbot, with that little bit more prestige, people made the time and the effort to do, but the Waterloo was always seen as sort of secondary. Still a good competition, don't get me wrong, still has a lot of prestige. But if they were going to take time off to do anything, it would be the Talbot. And really that was the case right until the Talbot was closed and demolished, which I think was in 1968, I think. And then after that the Talbot went to the Rakes Hall. And I think around that time, obviously with the Talbot gone, the prestige of that event was tarnished a little bit, and I think it was around maybe the late 60s, early 70s, the Waterloo really became the one that everybody wanted. And obviously I think it was 1977 the Talbot stopped being played at the Rakes. It was revitalised 15 years later, something like that, 14 years later. But yeah, as soon as the Talbot went, that was when the Waterloo became far more prominent. But I'll look into that more. I think it is as straightforward as that. But obviously the Waterloo had the stands. They only had the standing area and the glass veranda, I believe, around that time. They put up temporary stands for the final days there. The Talbot was also a stadium, but not as big as I can gather. I'm going to with all this research I'm doing, I'm going to look at where the Talbot actually was. I know where it was. I just want to find some old photos if I can from above, just to show you where in Blackpool it was and how big it was. And I know it was up near the North Shore train station. It was the first pub you came to when you walked out of the train station. So that narrows it down a bit, doesn't it? But yeah, as soon as the Talbot bowling green went, as soon as the Talbot pub went, the mantle of the daddy competition was transferred to the Waterloo, I believe. So, hope that answers your question, Paul. Now, Mitch Tough, a young man who has been around for seemingly a long time, won a comp recently, coming on as a good player, playing in good company, playing at the Griffin as well, so he's learning from good players and picking up good habits. And he says the footer remark is brilliant. I would compare it with the handball rule in football. You can never win. He's got some questions for me. Top 5 players in the, I think he means country, over the last 3 years. I don't think I'd be being particularly controversial if I said Callum Rake, Greg Smith, Gary Ellis, Graham Wilson, and then probably Simon Cowp. Maybe Wayne Ditchfield. I don't think that would be too controversial, do you? Top 5 players in the 90s. Well, the 90s, whenever I think of 90s bowling, I'm always Brian Duncan, top of the pile. And then, for me, it's not Noel Burrows. Noel, I think, fantastic player, awesome person as well, he's wonderful company. But I think at that time he got sort of sidetracked with his business and playing for England indoors, and I don't think, if you said 90s bowling to me, Noel doesn't really come to mind. 80s, him and Brian all day long. 90s, I'm then thinking John Bancroft, a guy who packed the game in far too soon. Awesome player. I think, has he won every competition, every big major apart from the All England? I think, could be wrong. Tommy Johnson, amazing bowler, has been an amazing player for a long time, but the 90s really came to the fore, winning televised competitions, and same sort of time Glyn Cookson, yeah, he's still going now, still playing well, still winning competitions, but the 90s Glyn was right up there. I think those 4 were head and shoulders above everyone else. But there was a player I mentioned earlier, I think if it had carried on, I think he would have been right up there as well, Gary Wallace. I had a lot of time in later years, a lot of time for Gary, nice guy. When I was coming through 16, 17 years old, he was the sort of player I really idolised. He played balls how I wanted to play balls. He was full on, he did it properly, he was professional in his attitude. I just liked the way he played the game. Some people said he was arrogant. He was. He believed in his own ability, and that's fine. I've no problem with that. Maybe I went too far with that, maybe, because I sort of went along the same lines. But I think Gary packed in for many reasons. I don't think there's just one. Maybe he tells me he lost heart after losing a few finals, and his desire wasn't there, and I fully understand that. I've been in similar positions, but yeah, he would have been in my top 5 of the 90s players. Debatable, maybe, but that's my opinion, and I'm allowed to have it. He's also asked 3 players who you think underachieved in terms of potential or ability that they had. Well, there's a lot of players who have come along, won a couple of comps and then disappeared again. I can think of quite a few. But there was a guy that played with me in the juniors. We came through at the same time, with the same age, and I thought he had a really good all-round game, and maybe he didn't enter a lot of comps, but he was good enough to get in the North Lancs team back in the early 90s. And that's a guy called David Bennison from Higher Walton, played with the Cowps. He was brought up in good company, you know. He learnt the game well, and he was, I think if he'd have entered comps and kept playing, I think he would have been a real good player. I know he had a bit of a problem with the county, and there was a fallout, and he ended up sort of not playing, and I think he packed in just after that. I don't even know if he's playing socially or at local league level, but I think he had tremendous ability. Another guy who, for various reasons, I think he might have started playing again now, but he certainly went missing for a long number of years, and that's Matt Bauer from Sheffield. I thought he was a really good player. Won the All England, won the Pudsey Big Comp, beat me in the final actually. That's brought back some bad memories. So certainly had the ability, but unfortunately I think he enjoyed too much of the old amber nectar, and I think there's a few other things gone on in his life which just meant bowls wasn't important anymore, and once you lose that hunger, it's gone. Another guy who you could argue he's had a good career, and I think he could have done even better and been, you know, really, if he'd have been really committed to it, I think he could have been one of the very best, and that's Tommy King. Actually, I know a lot of people, they laugh and joke about him, but Tommy had tremendous ability as a youngster. Lost in the final of a big Bassmasters qualifier to John Bancroft when I think he was 16 or 17. But you know, bowls, he wasn't as committed to bowls as he could have been, because everyone has to have a life as well. You know, not everyone wants to play in bowls comps morning, noon and night. And Tommy's had a good career, won quite a bit, played for 3 counties, is it? 4 counties, not sure. Played with me at Budenbergs for a time, and now happily ensconced in Blackpool, playing at the Martin Institute. Lovely wife and son. So yeah, Tommy King, I think he had the ability to go right to the very top, and he still has it in him now to pull an odd game or 2 out. But yeah, I think those would have been my 3: Dave Bennison, Matt Bauer and Tommy King. There's probably, if I sat and thought about it for any length of time, I could probably think of another 10 players or so. Mike Holding? No, he don't count. Okay, so I don't want to go on too much longer, because I'll just mention Joe Carr. He got upset with me because I said it was from Bury, but he's not. He's from Radcliffe. Sorry, Joe. Many apologies. Happy to put that right. The last message I got was from a bowls buddy from Blackpool, but originally he's from Huddersfield, and we're actually distantly related by marriage. And that's Mike Fleming. Nice chap, left-hander, but don't hold that against him. And he says, you mentioned the Huddersfield Works Bowling League. In my youth, this was a very large league of 8 divisions. My first employer, Brook Motors, had 7 teams, as did several other large engineering firms. The top division was full of subscription bowlers, and being an evening league of 8-a-side, it was very high standard. At that time, Brook Motors had 5 current Yorkshire County players. The annual Works League individual singles event had around 300 entries. So there you go, and that's a Works League, 8 divisions, 300 entries for the merit. It just shows how big a capture area. Yeah, that'll do. How big a capture area it was for new bowlers, because I guess until you started working at those places, you might not have had the opportunity to play bowls. I very much doubt players moved between moved between work so they could play for a different team. That would be going a bit too far. But you know, that's another part of the game that's disappeared. Greens gone left, right and centre. But players, I mean, can you imagine 5 players, 8 a side, so that's at least 40 players, if not 50 players, just at one company. And all the businesses that have closed, you know, taking teams with them. It's just another way the game has deteriorated. Not important anymore. We're not seen as something viable or something of importance that places want to keep the bowling greens. Look at Leeds at the minute are trying to cut back on the greens they have in their parks. I think there's a petition going around at the minute. They're trying to cut them by 50%. And you could argue, if you're a realist, you could argue, well, they don't need all those greens because there aren't enough players to fill them. Absolutely. But once they're gone, they're gone. They're never coming back. So even if we had a sudden influx in the Leeds area of a few hundred new players, those greens will be gone. And that's the danger that we're in. As soon as greens go, they never come back. I've talked about the ICI venue at Huddersfield, 2 greens gone there. Greens are disappearing at a rapid rate of knots, and they're almost going under the radar. You know, at the minute with the situation as it is, there's probably going to be greens that never reopen for whatever reason, and that is a massive worry. And I guess we'll end up with the number of greens that we need to keep 80,000 bowlers happy, if that's a true number. 80,000 bowlers, 80 members per club, we need 1,000 greens. I don't know how many greens we've got in the country. I know Manchester had about 350, so I bet Yorkshire's got around the same, if not more. So we've probably got far too many greens than what we need, but that's not the point. What we need to do is get more players to fill them. And somebody asked me the other day, you keep going on about open days and things like that. Well, who's going to come to an open day? Well, don't call it an open day. Member and guest pairs. You insist that the members that enter, they bring somebody who's never played bowls before, somebody brand new to the game, bring them along, have round robin pairs all afternoon, have a laugh, have a drink, happy days. They might want to do it the following week as well. You never know until you try, but that's the way forward, I think. Get new players to try the game and see if they get hooked. So I don't think I have a lot else to tell you. I think I've covered all the comments. I think there may have been one more that was interesting, but I might just leave some of it for another time. Oh, here we go. Fort Dunlop had 2 lovely greens. It's now a bloody travel lodge, says Helen Harrigan. And I've driven past that place many times and never thought about that. Malcolm Pass said, a bloody travesty. It was a lovely place to play bowls. I'll take your word for that. I'm sure it was. Chris Jepson, Huddersfield had a great works league back in the 70s, 80s and 90s, and many of their engineering firms had their own greens, including David Brown's near to where you bowl at the Griffin. Their green was in its own sports ground, where they also had a football and cricket field next to the Walpole Council Estate. Unfortunately, that and the ICI greens have disappeared. Looking forward to stories from the scrapbook. So there you go. Lots of greens gone, lots of bowlers gone. Hopefully we can turn that around once we get out of this appalling situation that the country is in, and fingers crossed we can get out there bowling soon. Really important though, you need to stay safe. Don't put yourself at risk. Remember to wear your masks if you go out. worrying times. Hopefully these vaccines will work, hopefully people will take them, and hopefully we can start living again and getting on with the normal things that we do in life, like playing bowls and moaning about why we've lost. So guys, thanks for watching this week. Stay safe when you're going out, and I hope to see you next week. Bye for now.